the inability to criticize someone more powerful than you, just because you have a vested interest with that person, is exactly what you criticize the establishment media for. And that's exactly what you're doing right now.
When the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
I'm not a huge fan of Kyle Kulinski. I think his takes are not very nuanced, to be honest, at times, and drift into this kind of anti-establishment for the sake of being anti-establishment. Not to the extreme of idiots like Jimmy Dore, of course, but dipping more than just your toe into that line of thinking, which I strongly disagree with in many respects. But what's increasingly bothered me most about Kyle Kulinski is his simping for Joe Rogan. And I find it honestly a bit inexplicable because, well, Kyle Kulinski is one of the most popular online leftists. His channel has over close to, I think, or slightly over 1 million views. He also is very close to Crystal Ball and has, another show with her. So, he's definitely not short on revenue in any way, and he's not short on visibility in the online space in any way. Now, obviously, Joe Rogan is a much bigger platform. And, anyone who appears on the Joe Rogan show, like Kyle Kulinski has in the past, basically exposes himself to a much wider audience. So there's clearly a benefit to being on his show. And, I would think that there's a commercial case for this, but in terms of, you're already a big presence. You're already heard, given the stature that Kulinski already has. It would be far more likely for like channels like mine with less than 400 subscribers to want to get into, a channel with a much bigger fan base and then jump up in visibility. And that's what a lot of online leftists have done, very successfully. A great example of this, for example, is Vosh, who was already relatively popular, but then he went on the Tim Pool show, and his audience just absolutely skyrocketed after that. Tim Pool has a massive, massive fan base. So, I'm not against this kind of building your audience strategy. But then when you're already as big as Kyle Kulinski, what more do you want? And what can you get from Joe Rogan that makes you become such a simp for him? He considers him his friend, which I'm not quite sure that Joe Rogan considers him back. I mean, I'm sure they're on friendly terms. They clearly message each other privately. They have each other's phone numbers, but even then, like, friends are people who kind of hang out every so often. And I'm not sure they have a friendship outside their their professional relationship as a guest and a host. But let's just watch some videos because this past week there's been just too much simping. And at the end of the video, I'll explain why I find this problematic from a hypocrisy standard. So let's watch. This one was on September 5th on the Breaking Points show, which he is currently hosting while Sagar is on holidays, I believe. So let's watch. Because basically this whole video was about how amazing Joe Rogan is.
So, what is the appeal of somebody who Crystal and I are fortunate enough to know, who's number one podcaster in the world, Joe Rogan? What makes him the best?
No, we have like 7 videos on him. He actually has a lot. I don't know. Do you want to start? If not, I'm happy to.
I mean, he is. I think the person that we've done the most times because there is really a lot. So I'll let you start.
Yeah, he does something that most people struggle with, which is he is interesting to listen to and good at asking questions and listening.
So I'm not going to show this whole video because it's kind of pointless to what I'm trying to say. I do fundamentally agree that Joe Rogan is a good podcaster. And they mention this later in the video, which he does a good job of, presenting himself as not as someone who doesn't know the subject, but then asking the questions that the audience wants to hear. So that's a very good quality in someone in that position. So I do not like Joe Rogan because of his the selective nature of the people who he invites on his show. Okay, so he might appear to be open to different views, and yes, he has occasionally some leftist on his show, like Kyle Kulinski. He had Bernie Sanders, and he appeared to endorse Bernie Sanders as well. So I have no issue with that. But by and large, the people who he brings on are people who he doesn't really challenge that much. Occasionally he does. He's challenged Dave Rubin on a couple of occasions, but then Dave Rubin is fucking, unicellular organism levels of stupidity. He's occasionally countered stuff that Jordan Peterson has said, but by and large, he's invited a lot of people who fit into this kind of alt-light intellectual dark web ecosystem, and he doesn't challenge the fundamentals of what they believe. So he challenges just a few issues here and there, but he doesn't really challenge their worldviews, their ideologies, and that is very problematic because yes, there is a massive bias in the people that Joe Rogan invites on his show. So again, you can be a good podcaster in terms of the skills needed to engage with an audience, but that does not make you a good podcaster in the sense of bringing in people across a wide spectrum of the ideological base. If you don't do that, then you're biased, and he doesn't admit that bias, which is what I think is problematic. If he was openly conservative, openly alt-light or whatever, then fine. But he doesn't do that. So it's weird. It's weird. And anyway, so they go on. Just skip it for a bit.
Zero disagreement, totally compliant and friendly, or they snap and then they are all in your face. I think that the courage that he's probably developed from those activities spills over and is what makes him so authentic. And I think it's also what is felt threatening to some people about the Spotify deal is that would go away, that if he got a ton of money. And I've seen some of it, and I've seen him at least continue to be authentic in what I've watched.
We both know exactly what Dave Rubin, your clip you're talking about, and probably everyone listening also does. And yeah, he doesn't have to get like yelly or use personal insults to absolutely own Rubin in that moment.
Yeah, and then he just moves on too. It's not like he like some people.
Yeah.
Some people, once there's the disagreement, it's like they'll linger on it, and it's just like you can feel the energy of it. But no, he'll like disagree, be on the record, and then it's like, all right, let's talk about something else.
I mean, owning Dave Rubin is the low-hanging fruit of owning anyone in a discussion. I hate to say this.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a smooth transition. So tell me why Russell Brand is charismatic.
He's one of my favorites. I have a man crush on Russell Brand.
By the way, Russell Brand is I used to kind of like him, but I think he's gone off the deep end in terms of this sort of conspiracy theory. I mean, he's just look at the title of some of these videos. Yeah, on the COVID pandemic, I don't think has been very, very helpful to him. Don't trust big pharma. Watch this. It almost sounds like those clickbaity videos of get rich quick schemes, which is really sad. And he's gone a bit under the radar in terms of just how massive he is. He has almost 4 million followers. So he's an important voice in the ecosystem. But yeah, again, these people confuse charisma with the content of what they're producing, and that has to be measured equally, I think. You just can't be a good podcaster in terms of your skills at interviewing people and not be judged on what you say. Anyway, following that, Kyle made another video. This was right after Joe Rogan confirmed that he had COVID and was taken some rather controversial treatments, which I think now is the time that I mentioned. I had one of my videos debunking certain anti-vax claims taken down by YouTube, despite the fact that, you know, those videos were not promoting any kind of medical misinformation. They were debunking it. And I'm not very happy about that because my site got a warning, and warnings stay forever. So I'm treading very dangerous ground right here. I will not be making many COVID-related videos anymore, to be honest. And I'm going to tread very careful ground and not mention a certain drug, horse dewormer, which I will for now on refer exclusively as a horse dewormer, even though that I'm aware that it has some use in humans. But yeah, let's watch what he had to say about this controversial treatment that Joe Rogan took.
So Joe Rogan had COVID, and he has recovered. It took him a day or two to recover. This was a big story while I was on vacation. I wanted to weigh in on it. So here are the drugs that he took for COVID. I'm not sure how well you guys can hear this, but I'll play it and tell me in the comments how well you can hear this.
Immediately through the kitchen sink, got all kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone.
So those are the drugs that he took to treat COVID. And there was a lot of controversy over this. I feel sort of like fake controversy and ginned up. And here's the claim that a lot of people in the media are making. They're saying, hey, he took ivermectin. This is happening at the same time that there have been these articles coming out saying that there are people in the middle of the country who are using ivermectin, but they're actually getting the veterinary version of ivermectin. So they're getting, there's like a horse paste version of it. And so a lot of people are saying it's just a horse dewormer.
So note the first thing that he's doing there. He's not addressing the fact that he's implicitly endorsing said horse dewormer. He's complaining how the media is dealing with said horse dewormer, which is incredibly problematic, because one of the main problems right now in the US is that a lot of people are not taking the vaccine because they think this horse dewormer is even more useful and doesn't finance big pharma. At least that's the argument on the left. So this is incredibly problematic. Like, this is a national health issue that Kyle Kulinski is now playing down because he'd rather talk about how the media is incorrectly describing this drug.
It's one of the drugs that they use to treat livestock when they have parasites, I guess. And now, obviously, there's also a human version of the drug that people take for other things. And clearly, Joe Rogan took the human version, and he was prescribed it by a doctor. And it is, you know, there's some doctors who believe in off-label use for ivermectin. And from my...
the only ones who believe in that are crackpots. And honestly, if your doctor does that, get another one. Again, he's kind of implicitly... I mean, there are associations of doctors who are promoting this shit. And that's very fucking dangerous. Incredibly fucking dangerous. Because they're making careers out of being these, like, edgy doctors who see, you know, beyond the mainstream lies. This is incredibly... To assume that the doctors also don't have political motivations or are not involved in their own propagandizing and grift is incredibly naive. So I'd be very damn worried if my doctor prescribed me a medication that has no evidence whatsoever that it works for COVID. And not that you'll know, you know, if he prescribes 4 or 5 different meds, obviously you're not going to know exactly what all of them are, but everyone right now knows one of those drugs and should know by now that it's a fucking farce.
Look at the evidence and look at the data and look at the studies to this point on ivermectin. It strikes me that it's going to go the way of hydroxychloroquine, where it's not really going to be used as a main treatment for COVID. And one of the studies that the initial support of ivermectin was based on had to be retracted because it was effectively fraudulent. That doesn't mean there aren't some doctors that still believe there's a benefit. There's still some doctors who think there's a benefit for hydroxychloroquine, but hydroxychloroquine is off-label use for COVID. Ivermectin is off-label use for COVID. He obviously had seen something that led him.
So he's recognizing that some doctors are prescribing things that they shouldn't. Yet before that, he was justifying what Rogan took and what he's promoting because certain doctors told him
to believe that this stuff works. But the media was saying, oh, Rogan is taking horse dewormer. And Rogan came out afterwards and was like, do I have to sue CNN? Do I have to sue like Jim Acosta and all these outlets saying I'm taking horse dewormer? I'm obviously
free speech Joe Rogan suing CNN. That is rich. That is fucking rich.
not taking the horse version of ivermectin. I'm taking the human version of it that was prescribed to me by a doctor. So there was a lot of like, it's so sloppy and so loose. And the media's going after him, I think, simply because a lot of them just don't like Joe Rogan. So they're portraying everything he's doing in the most negative light. But
poor Joe Rogan, a guy with millions and millions of followers who is promoting medical misinformation. But in Kyle Kulinski's world, the problem is the media who called him out for promoting this and taking it. This is unfucking believable.
I will say this, in my personal opinion, I don't think I would have had ivermectin in my list of things to take, because from my reading of the evidence so far, it's probably going to go the way of hydroxychloroquine. Now, they're doing some other studies on it right now, some more long-term studies on it right now, and when the results of that come out, we'll see just how effective it really is. But as of right now, the evidence is not there, and the data is not there to justify using that as an effective treatment against COVID-19. So this got me thinking. Now, by the way, I'm happy Joe's okay. He's the nicest guy in the world. I've been on his podcast a number of times, and he's the easiest person in the world to talk to. And I feel like he's genuinely open to changing his mind when he has a conversation, and if you present counter evidence, he'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
How is he going to convince himself when the people who he invites already have a predefined position on things? When has he invited, for example, like a mainstream doctor on his show to debunk all the other bullshit from the other doctors that he invites? When has he done that? So he's not open to conversation because he selectively chooses his guests. That's exactly what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and that is why Joe Rogan is so fucking problematic.
So, I mean, he's just a really good guy overall. I'm really happy that he got better, and he got better quickly. He said he had one night of fever and chills and just feeling run down and terrible, and then when he threw the kitchen sink at it, to use his words, and used all these drugs, he got much better. But this did get me thinking, if I got COVID, what would I take? What would I do? And actually, my answer was very, very simple. I just want the Trump drug regimen, because they gave it the most powerful man on earth. They had to treat him. Apparently, when he was in really rough shape from COVID, it wasn't really known publicly. They were hiding it, but he was having trouble breathing, all sorts of issues. So what did they give Trump when he was in the hospital with COVID? So first of all, they gave him dexamethasone, which is a steroid that they've been using, and there's studies on that show it really helps COVID patients. So, but that's more for like, it's dexamethasone. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Dexamethasone, I don't know what stage of the process they give it to you. The one that really helps, if there's a lot of evidence, is remdesivir, and Trump had that too. So I would just want the Trump, drug regimen. I'd want the dexamethasone, remdesivir, the Regeneron's monoclonal antibody stuff. Then they also gave him zinc and vitamin D and melatonin and famotidine. It's used to treat ulcers and heartburn and indigestion, and it reduces the amount of acid in the stomach. And apparently there's some evidence that it does positive stuff for COVID. And aspirin as well, Trump took. So let me run through one more time. He took 8 drugs overall. Dexamethasone, remdesivir, Regeneron's monoclonal antibodies, zinc, vitamin D, famotidine, and melatonin and aspirin. That's what Trump had. If I ever get COVID, and you're a doctor who watches this show, hit your boy up and hook me up with this exact drug regimen. Now, I'll leave it up to the experts to tell me what order to take the shit in. Like, I think the remdesivir they use for very late in COVID when you're really, really struggling. So maybe I won't even get to the point where I need remdesivir, especially because I've been vaccinated. But keep that in your back pocket, dog.
Oh, that's another thing. Has Joe Rogan ever admitted to being vaccinated? I don't think he has. That is also incredibly problematic. Is Kyle mentioning it at all? Of course not.
Hook a brother up if I get COVID. But really, and I actually texted Joe about this when I learned he had COVID. I told him, don't hesitate if you need to take more of the monoclonal antibodies, because I'm not a doctor, I'm an idiot. My opinion is like worth absolutely nothing when it comes to.
Then why the hell are you texting him to tell him to take a certain med? What is? I think this was just an excuse to like text him. Yay, I'm texting Joe Rogan. This is so cringe, so absolutely cringe.
To science stuff and health stuff and medicine stuff, but that's the shit I know I would want the most of. Like, hook me up with the Regeneron's monoclonal antibodies, because that shit is what I really think, and I don't know, but it's one of the things I think really helped save Trump. So remember, Joe had that. Now, I don't know which drug Joe attributes his recovery to, if any of them, but...
Oh, he knows. And I'm going to show you in a bit. He knows. Look at the date on this video, September 9th. Just take that into account.
When I look at it, I really think it was probably the monoclonal antibodies that did the most work and did the most heavy lifting, and probably fixed him up real quick. Because he's pretty healthy. He's, relatively young in the grand scheme of things. I mean, he's in his, early 50s. So you're healthy, you work out all the time, he has a good diet, early 50s, and he did throw the kitchen sink at it with the drug regimen he took. So he got better quickly, and that's a very, very good thing. And the issue is this: there's not going to be many people who have access to the monoclonal antibody stuff, and that's a shame because I think that's really, really helpful for this stuff. So you could argue that's the thing that really made the difference. My layman's opinion, my guess is that that's the thing that really made the difference, and that's why I texted him and said, listen, if you feel bad, don't hesitate to take more of that shit because that shit will probably help the most. But again, I'm an idiot. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All I'm telling
No, you just want to tell people that you have Joe Rogan's number.
You is what I would really want if I got COVID and I was starting to feel some symptoms. Just give me the Trump drug regimen because that shit worked. Trump is 1,000 years old. He's fat like Jabba the Hutt, and he was able to recover. And it's because he got the best treatment in the world. So what we're looking at here is like the best treatment in the world. Joe's treatment, even though he has access to any drug he wants, it's really, he didn't have like the best treatment in the world. The monoclonal antibody thing, that really is great, but the other stuff he didn't have. And funny enough, I think the other stuff is relatively cheap to get too, or cheaper than the monoclonal antibody. So anyway, there you have it. I'm happy Joe Rogan is better. The media should really reel it in a little bit with like the fake outrage. Don't get me wrong. Like I get there are people out there who are poking fun at the people who are taking the veterinary version and the horse paste of ivermectin. Hey, I get it. Have fun. Go at it. It is what it is. It is an easy joke that's just sitting there waiting for people to make because there is a livestock version of the drug. So I get it. But all I'm saying is don't fool yourself into believing the narrative too much because it is sort of an unfair description.
What narrative, Kyle? The narrative is people are taking a drug that is not meant to treat this disease. Whether you take the human version or the horse version, it doesn't fucking matter. But you're not mentioning any of this at all. Because all you care about in this video is smearing the media for calling it a horse dewormer and reminding people how close you are to your buddy Joe.
You could say it's funny, ha ha he he, but if you're the news, your job is not to be ha ha he he funny, is to tell the truth. And they're saying he took horse dewormer, he didn't. He took the human version of ivermectin, which granted, there's really not enough evidence to say that that's the thing that fights COVID well, but that is what he took, the human version. So don't lie and say it was horse dewormer or whatever. That does strike me as a little bit disingenuous, even though some people have said it and then hid behind, well, we're just joking. Okay, if you're joking, fine, it is what it is. But to the media, to the news, to CNN, don't be dishonest about it. And I do get the sense that they are dishonest about it. But anyway, I'm happy Joe's better. I do think that this should be one of those moments, though, where people wake up and realize, I don't know Joe's vaccine status. I don't think he's vaccinated. It's very possible if he was vaccinated, he wouldn't have gotten it at all.
Oh, he does mention.
He attributes the fact that he was drinking and out all night to like weakening his immune system, which then allowed him to get it. I don't know how backed up that is by the science. I do know that when it comes to the vaccines, the numbers are very, very clear, and this is for all the vaccines. You have about 50% protection from breakthrough cases. So in other words, you can be vaccinated and you have 50% protection of just not getting COVID even if you're exposed to it. But that doesn't mean there's a 50% chance you could get it if you're exposed to it. But if you do get it, it's overwhelmingly likely that it's very mild symptoms. And you still have over 95% protection from severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Those are the only numbers that really matter. And so it is possible if you had the vaccine, you wouldn't have even gotten the breakthrough case in the first place. So, use this as a cautionary tale. Go get vaccinated. It'll definitely help you to not get COVID, but if you do get COVID, it'll be super mild if you do get it. So the vaccine is really the answer. And then hopefully we don't have to have a conversation about what drugs you need if you get it,
If someone has a video of Joe Rogan ever endorsing vaccine use in this same manner, I would love to see it because I don't think he has. And again, this is something that he should have called out. Now, not just by mentioning that, oh, possibly he hasn't been vaccinated. This is something that he should have called out because this is part of the game that Rogan is playing. This is part of the misinformation. And he's not calling it out on him out on this. And honestly, at this point, I would not be surprised if more people watch Joe Rogan than they watch CNN or Jim Acosta. I'm pretty sure at this point in history, Joe Rogan is a bigger public figure than Jim Acosta. Or at least people might watch Jim Acosta without like paying much attention to it, whereas almost everyone who listens to Joe Rogan really listens to him. So his power of persuasion over his audience is probably much bigger than Jim Acosta's. So yeah, it is more dangerous, way more dangerous in the grander scheme of things, in the middle of a health emergency, to do what Joe Rogan is doing with medical misinformation than Jim Acosta calling it a horse dewormer. I mean, I'm sorry. These are just not comparable in any way. So, like I said, I told you to look at the date, September 9th. Well, this is the Joe Rogan experience from 2 days before, which Kyle Kulinski should have done his due diligence and seen.
The Joe Rogan experience.
Well. If it isn't old horseworm Rogan. I'm glad you're well, man.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
Oh, no, do you?
They're making shit up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. It's an American company. Mm-hmm. They won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for use in human beings.
Yeah.
And CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Yeah.
So all of this is implicit endorsement.
What? So
they must know that that's a lie.
There's a lot of people saying it.
Right, but
so Owen Higgins, he's a He's a journalist. His Twitter account is quite good. He refers to anti-vaxxers as hard and soft anti-vaxxers, and I really like that distinction, because hard anti-vaxxers are the ones who are open about being anti-vax, whereas soft anti-vaxxers don't openly say it. They're sort of hiding behind, we just distrust the science, or I'm not against the vaccines. I'm just against this experimental, untested one. Shit like that. And that kind of anti-vax is far more common among the left than on the right. On the right, it's more hard anti-vax. But still, this plays into their ears. This is effective endorsement of an unproven drug. And it makes people think that they should take this drug instead of the vaccine.
A lot of people can say it.
Okay.
Like the internet says it. Who cares?
Sure.
But CNN is saying it. Like Jim Acosta.
I meant like USA Today, a few other
Yeah.
places,
And they're talking
people.
about ivermectin,
Yeah.
right? So what, because I don't know, I just saw so much news about you. I mean, I talked to you and check on you and see if you're all right. And you're like, you threw the kitchen sink at it, you said, which was stuff that, you took IV drips and was it
monoclonal antibodies.
And what is monoclonal antibodies?
It's the shit they gave Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so who said, or did you already want ivermectin?
Well, I had this guy on, Dr. Pierre Corey, and he is, what is the organization he's from? Frontline COVID Critical Care Workers?
He's a fucking hack. Okay, and again, what I said about selective interviews, he's gotten that guy on his show to discuss all this alternative views about COVID science. He hasn't had a standard. In fact, why doesn't he bring this dumbass, and then he brings a recognized authority and have them debate on his show? He could do that, but he chooses not to. He chooses his guests. He chooses what people want to hear.
He's a well-established doctor. He's treated thousands of people with COVID, and they've early on in the pandemic they found some good efficacy with ivermectin. Frontline 19 Critical Care Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had him on, and he had talked to me about it. He's not the only doctor that told me to take it. Multiple doctors told me to take it.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to have what is the?
I would not also be surprised if there's a selection bias with Joe Rogan's doctors. I don't think that Rogan just goes to any random doctor. He picks the ones. So none of this is believable in any way.
Exact thing it's supposed to do. There's something that I highlighted. And this is obviously, I'm not a doctor. It says ivermectin was found to be a blocker of viral replicase, REPLICASA protease, and I don't know what this word is, human TMPRSS2. I don't know. But what they didn't highlight is that I got better.
Yeah, you got better quickly.
They try to make it seem as if I'm.
How can you ascertain that you got better just because of the horse dewormer? When you took other medications, which you've admitted was in the cocktail that Trump got. So this is unbelievable. This is like something that even like a high school statistics class would have told you. You can't make a reliable study in which you give multiple drugs and then your conclusion is that just one of those, or one of them was responsible for it. This is unbelievable. I mean, I don't think it harmed him. But considering all the other ones that he took, why is he concluding that that's the one that worked? And this is what Kyle did not mention. He must have seen it. In fact, no, he did see this, because at the beginning of this video is when he says, should he sue CNN? Then Kyle mentioned that. So he has seen this video. That's so disingenuous on Kyle's part to assume that he was like, well, I don't know which one he thought was responsible for it. He's saying it right here, which one he thinks, or he's not openly saying which one he thinks worked the most, but he's claiming that this worked.
Doing some wacky shit that's completely ineffective.
Right.
And CNN was saying that I'm a distributor of misinformation. Also, that was the other thing that happened. In Tokyo, in Japan, which is apparently they're very conservative about the medication that they use and the medications that they endorse. But the Tokyo Medical Association chairman held a live press conference recommending ivermectin to all doctors for all COVID patients.
I believe that is false. But I don't think we need to see any more of this. And yeah, so I'm going to just give my final thoughts, because this is why this pisses me off. And it's not just a random issue. It's an issue that is very closely ingrained to the mentality of all these anti-establishment leftists. The reason that people like Kyle Kulinski, Jimmy Dore, Crystal Ball, Brianna Joy Gray, all these other ones, they hate the establishment because the establishment is like an old boys network in which they never challenge each other. And, they favor their, mainstream politicians, mainstream experts, etc., and rarely challenge them in any way. And according to them, the reason people like you and me should listen to independent media, like YouTubers, podcasts, whatever, is because they are brave, fearless, and they will criticize others. They have no allegiance. They're subject to no monetary incentives or anything. And yet in practice, we see that's not the case. We see that here, Kyle Kulinski, a guy with 1 million fucking YouTube subscribers, who's on multiple, highly viewed shows, still feels the need to simp for Joe Rogan and basically whitewash all the misinformation that Joe Rogan promotes on his show, and instead turn this into criticism of the establishment media because they mischaracterized the purpose of the drug that he is taking. Which I should add, and he does mention this, but only in a passing way. It is, the horse version is being taken by a lot of people, as Milo Yiannopoulos recently did when he got COVID. That's the cattle version, and that's even a veterinary syringe. I don't know if he actually did this or this is like doctored, but there you go. So they are doing it, and this promotes it. Because if your doctor does not prescribe you the human version, a lot of these dipshits are going to go to their first Walgreens and get the horse paste version. That's what they're going to do. And this is a medical emergency. And Kyle just didn't care about that. He just turned this into a critique of the establishment media for not calling the drug what it really, what it accurately does. That is insane. And he does this because he's a simp. He's a cuck. I hate to say this. I don't usually use this language on this show, but yeah, that's being a cuck. And that is betraying the very principle that you hold as an independent, I won't call him a journalist, but as an independent pundit. The inability to criticize someone more powerful than you, just because you have a vested interest with that person, is exactly what you criticize the establishment media for. And that's exactly what you're doing right now in these videos. So, what a shame. But yeah. I mean, in the end, this whole independent media moniker is kind of useless, isn't it? Once you get to a certain degree of fame and fortune, you are subject to many interests. You are subject to, your ad revenues, your networking, etc. It's impossible to be fully independent. So people should care more about the content rather than this imaginary independence that these outlets have. So, yeah. All I gotta say on that note, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe. And don't take horse dewormers. Just don't, okay? And I will see you next time. I hope this video, I'm gonna actually test uploading this video to my my personal YouTube account, just to see if it doesn't get taken down again. But yeah. Cool. See you later.